All right. Okay. Hello, Hafaday, and aloha. Thank you all for joining us again today. Welcome to the 6th webinar in the Pacific Desk 2022 webinar series. I'm David Hitzel, the Pacific Desk Guam instructor, and today's topic of discussion is disaster management, emergency operations, and outreach initiatives in the Marianas. Our usual reminders before we begin: this is being recorded for educational and documentational purposes and is being posted simultaneously on Facebook Live. Please leave questions in the comment section, including your location and affiliation. You can also leave comments and questions on the Facebook side, so please do that. And there will, of course, be a period of oral questioning at the end of the talks, but otherwise, please refrain from using your audio or video. And then lastly, we're recording this, and I will pass you the link on YouTube through the email. Okay, upcoming webinars. Our December webinar will explore the topic of hydrology, including groundwater recharge, canopy interception, evapotranspiration runoff, saltwater intrusion, climate projections, and land cover change. Our speaker will be Dr. Chris Schuler of the UH Water Resources Research Center, and he will discuss his projects in American Samoa, including climate and stream monitoring, and a water budget model, which uses his stream data for groundwater modeling. Chris will also introduce the concept of participatory modeling, which relates to a new portion of the Pacific Desk that Jennifer and I are working on. In early January, I have planned a webinar concerning the HRIT MWIN system, the NOAA NESDIS High Rate Information Transmission Emergency Managers Weather Information Network, otherwise known as HRIT MWIN, is a service that provides users in remote locations with weather forecasts, warnings, graphics, and GOES-R satellite information directly from the National Weather Service in near real time at relatively low cost and using very basic hardware. So I've invited NOAA MWIN specialist Ian Average to give a talk on this topic. Okay, today's panel. We have Jenna Blas, who is the Public Information Officer for the Offices of Guam Homeland Security and Office of Civil Defense, and has been with the agency since 2014. As the PIO, she is responsible for producing and delivering various forms of strategic messaging as they relate to public affairs and communication of the agency for the protection of Guam and its peoples from disasters, natural and man-made, and during emergency events. She serves as a public affairs liaison between JHS, OCD, and various government Guam agencies, military partners, the Office of the Governor, and private nonprofit organizations. Blas is a 2004 graduate from Notre Dame High School. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree with a concentration in organizational communications from the California State University, Sacramento in 2012, and completed her Master in Public Administration degree at the University of Guam in 2019. Yoni Towai is currently a planner for the Offices of Guam Homeland Security and Office of Civil Defense, and has been with the agency since 2018. As part of the planning section, she provides technical planning assistance to local agencies and organizations in the development and maintenance of a wide variety of disaster preparedness and emergency response plans. During emergency response operations, she transitions to the Guam Emergency Operations Center, otherwise known as the EOC, under the planning section. Yoni works with the government and non-government entities to collect, evaluate, disseminate, and display information to establish and maintain situational awareness. Under the planning section, she is also responsible for maintaining documentation related to the incident, conducting planning meetings, preparing the Guam EOC, incident action plan, daily situation reports, and other products that support senior level decision-making. Towai is a 2012 graduate of George Washington High School, and she earned her Bachelor of Social Work degree in 2016 at the University of Guam. The Guam Homeland Security's mission is to coordinate and facilitate all government of Guam military and federal liaison response agencies and the resources in mitigating, preparing, responding, and recovering from any and all types of emergencies in order to protect the lives, environment, and property of the island of Guam. Their objective is to maintain the highest level of preparedness to protect Guam's residents, workers, visitors, and environment from the impact of natural and human-caused disasters, and to create a more resilient community that is able to act quickly to ensure that disasters do not become catastrophes. So this webinar is actually a long time coming. I always wanted Jenna to come speak to us, and I think the Guam Homeland Security Office is one of the most qualified to talk on these topics, because Guam is a wonderful place and a beautiful place, but it has the whole gamut of natural hazards that you can think of. So they are well practiced in dealing with flood warnings, thunderstorm warnings, high surf warnings, tsunami warnings, earthquakes. So they're I think one of the best people to speak on this topic. Okay, and then my last thing I wanted to add before I turn it over to Jenna is that they have a great website. So there's a lot of detailed information that you can get on this website that there's not enough time in an hour to cover everything. So afterwards, or in the near future, you might want to check this out. So I have the links there on the bottom to their website, and then to their Facebook page, which they update, I think, almost daily. So please check those out. Okay, so I think, Jenna, are you going to speak first?
Yes, and I'm going to try to share my screen now.
Okay, so I'm going to stop share.
Okay. Thanks so much, David, for that intro. Let me try to set this up. Okay, can you let me know what you're seeing? Do you see the slides?
Sorry, I was muted. I see your full screen.
Okay, great. Yeah. So thank you so much for that introduction. You know, I see a lot of our GHSOCD members on the call. I'm just really appreciative for those that joined us. But again, thank you so much for the intro. My name is Jenna Blas, and I have my partner here with me, Miss Yoni Towai, who's going to be briefing out a little bit later, a few more slides from now. So we'll go ahead and get started for the group with a brief overview of Guam Homeland Security. David already covered our mission. You can see that there. Oh. And I'll just highlight that we're responsible for coordinating and facilitating all of the different resources from all of our partners, from the government of Guam, our military partners, private, nonprofit organizations, the private sector. Here we have a photo. I just wanted to highlight that there are so many different stakeholders that we work with whenever there's an activation for an emergency or disaster. We had a typhoon exercise that we participated in a few years back. So here we have some of our federal partners from FEMA, our military partners that joined in. We had some representatives come in from, with FEMA and our government of Guam partners. So I just wanted to highlight, this is them staged in front of our office building in Agana Heights on Guam. And then we just wanted to provide some context. I know there's just a few of us on the call, but for those that are also part of FEMA Region 9, we operate under the same framework. We operate using the National Response Framework and using the Incident Management System, National Incident Management System. The NRF is implemented by FEMA. A lot of us know this. It's used to guide our response activities from events of all sizes. And this is whether or not an emergency is declared. So we just wanted to highlight these, that the NRF is a nationwide all hazards approach. This describes our roles and our responsibilities along with our federal partners and the private sector in order to respond and recover from incidents. We use the National Incident Management System to coordinate all of our response activities. And what's not listed here and not written up here, but any type of federal disaster relief assistance that our office receives or the territory receives is provided by FEMA under the Stafford Act, much like many other states and territories. And that's only if the event is beyond the combined response capabilities of our local government. So just wanted to provide that broader scope. And to further highlight Guam GHSOCD as Guam's emergency management agency, we work within the national preparedness goal overall. So this identifies the 5 mission areas and the 32 core capabilities. And this is intended to assist all of us, all the stakeholders, those of us who have a role in emergency management, and this helps us execute our mission. So we're all working across the same functions. I'm unable to see the chat, so if anybody has any questions, you just have to speak up, but stop me at any time. We did want to highlight, this is just a general overview of our organizational chart. There's a very detailed one that we have with names assigned to the different roles. And we should have a complete organizational chart available on our website very soon. But we did want to highlight, we do fall under the Office of the Governor. Even though we're 100% federally funded, we are a line agency under the Office of the Governor. So you can see here at the very top, the Office of the Governor, followed by the Chief of Staff, who also serves as the Governor's authorized representative, and then followed by our Homeland Security Advisor, who serves also as the alternate Governor's authorized representative, followed by our Civil Defense Administrator, and then the different sections underneath that. And we'll go through that in a little bit. So again, we are 100% federally funded, but we fall under the government of Guam. So our procurement process flows through the government of Guam. We currently have about 29 personnel. And here I'm just going to go through the different divisions, but again, we're led by the Office of the Governor. Our Homeland Security Advisor is Ms. Samantha J. Brennan, and our Civil Defense Administrator is Mr. Charles Esteves. So some of you may have worked with them in the past. We do have different divisions within our organization. I'm just going to go through some of them quickly. Our Hazard Mitigation Office. This division coordinates the disaster loss reduction programs, initiatives, and policies throughout the territory. And then our Finance Admin, it's exactly what you think it is. They oversee financial administration of our agency. They coordinate the activities that support our office to run efficiently by ensuring continuity of business operations. So all procurement is handled through our Finance Administration Office. We do have a grants division. We actually have our grants manager on the call, Mr. Michael Tyron, and they contribute to the leadership and oversee all the administrative functions of our grants from its application, from the application process all the way through implementation. And we do have 6 federal grants that we operate out of. The 2 largest ones are Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG, and our Homeland Security Grant Program, HSGP. And they both run on a 3-year operational period. We also have what's called a Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and that makes grant funding available for presidentially declared disasters, provides funding for hazard mitigation for the communities. And then we also have a competitive grant, the pre-disaster mitigation, again, makes federal funds available to plan and implement sustainable, cost-effective measures so that we can mitigate against natural hazards. We have a very robust national tsunami hazard mitigation program. And that's designed to protect the people, reduce property loss in the event of a tsunami, as well as an earthquake, our NEHRB National Earthquake Hazards Reduction Program. And then just moving on through the divisions, public information is the one that I'm part of. We're responsible for coordinating and disseminating information, alerts and warnings and notifications to the public and all responders. Planning, and Ms. Yoni Towai is a planner with our office. She'll highlight a little bit, but they maintain our emergency response plans, not only for the agency, but for the territory. So working with all of our different stakeholders from the different, from the government of Guam, military, federal, private, nonprofit, making sure that those territory-wide plans are aligned. They also develop incident action plans for territory events, and they assist with the completion of what's called our comprehensive emergency management plan, our continuity of operation plans, our threat and hazards identification risk assessments. All of those planning efforts obviously falls under planning. And then we also have an operations division. They conduct the tactical operations to carry out these plans. And under operations, we also have we house the state warning point for the territory. So it's, it's pretty exciting. This is where they receive notifications and are in sync with FEMA's national system for alerting the public. That's the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, IPAWS. So this state warning point, and there's actually a photo there, Mr. Bob Arceo, he's he's briefing out to some students who toured our agency. They're manned 24/7, and through their office, they're able to activate our emergency notification systems. Myself, I work very closely with this office, this division, a true asset to our agency. They're manned 24/7. So they receive all the notifications from our partners with National Weather Service. I know Landon and Brandon briefed out in the last webinar series. So they work closely with our partners from National Weather Service, USGS, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, all of our local partners. They're really in sync with all of those different agencies where they get the notifications. And they were stood up back in 2017. This is when Guam was specifically named by North Korea. There was a lot of activity in our region. That's when the state warning point was stood up, 2017. And then moving right along to logistics, they have oversight of our agency's facilities, our fleet, our property. They also, during times of emergency disaster or emergency activations, they also provide logistics planning and commodities to affected communities. So logistics and operations, they work closely together. It's actually under one office at this time. And then we do have our training and exercise division. And this is where they offer a wide range of emergency management and first responder training to include incident command system, national incident management system, for all levels of the government, our private sector, volunteer, really the whole community. They assist with emergency management exercise and making sure that we're aligned with FEMA's Homeland Security exercise and evaluation program. So a lot of information. As seen earlier with our organization chart, you can see we're operating under the incident command system. It's the standardized approach for command and control for emergency response. And this can be expanded as needed. It can be brought smaller as needed. And Ms. Yoni Towai will talk a little bit more about our emergency operations center. So you can see that expansion or within our emergency operations center. And I'm sure it's not just our office, but across many others, emergency managers, sometimes we have to wear multiple hats. So, you know, we're a small group, but we definitely fill in the gaps where we can. We assist each other as best as we can. And we're working to cross-train to pick up where others leave off. So a small group, but we work very well with what we have. And we also wanted to highlight our office also houses what's called the Mariana Regional Fusion Center. Here you can see their mission, it's written up there, but these are local law enforcement agency representatives who are trained intel analysts. They support emergency management with information sharing. We have the nation's 78th Fusion Center. We're fortunate to have one on island. They really play a crucial part in our emergency management response and recovery, especially as it pertains to terroristic threats, man-made threats, and cybersecurity. All of that information sharing and intel is how we work closely with them. And our partners within CNMI, they have a Fusion Center node, which is an extension of the MRFC. We also house the Guam Recovery Office. GHS OCD, our agency, is the territory recipient of federal assistance programs for other agencies who receive support as subrecipients for the territory. This office was established to coordinate efforts and federal assistance programs relative to open disasters. So previous typhoon disasters, right now currently for COVID-19, the Guam Recovery Office is stood up to help facilitate all of that federal assistance that Guam can avail of. And they work with the different agencies to see what's available to them. So that was just a brief overview of our agency. We're going to talk a little bit about the threats and hazards, not only on Guam, but within our region, and then highlight a little bit more about the Emergency Operations Center. But we did want to provide some context and just as a general overview of our location for those that are not aware. As many of our partners that attend these webinar series, we are also a geographically isolated island jurisdiction. We're located over 5,600 miles from the continental United States and 36 miles from the closest state, which is Hawaii. We're located 2,500 miles west of the international date line. So we're 20 hours ahead of Hawaii and a day ahead of the continental United States. So our unofficial but our frequently used motto is we are where America's day begins. Sometimes when we're on a call with our partners from the continental United States, the running joke is that we're calling ahead from the future because we're always that day ahead. Our population, well, based off of our 2020 census, we have over 153,000 residents, but like many island jurisdictions, we're very culturally diverse. We have a population about 33% of them are Native Chamorro, 29% Filipino, 35% other Asian, so Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Taiwanese. And while English and Chamorro are the primary languages on Guam, it's common to hear many other languages such as Japanese, Korean, Chinese, now Russian, Filipino, and many other Micronesian island dialects. So this is very important when it comes to our planning and our outreach initiatives. We're always remembering that we're very culturally diverse. Just to point out, we're also a very high seismic region. Just like American Samoa, we're located within the Ring of Fire. The Mariana region alone contains 9 volcanic islands and more than 60 submarine volcanoes. So a lot of activity in our area. We're also located in what's called Typhoon Alley, where it's very common for us to be threatened by tropical storms, possible typhoons, especially during our typhoon season, July through December. But a typhoon can happen at any time. Just for going further down in my notes, we're also a very large transportation and communication hub within the region. Many items that need to pass through our area in order to get through the continental United States and Asia. So we rely very heavily, our economy and even just our day-to-day continuity, even our disaster response, it relies very heavily on the viability of our seaport and our airport, very important. And I did want to point out just at the top right of this photo, that's an actual picture of a fuel tanker that had blown up during Super Typhoon Pongsonghua back in 2002. We sustained about 144 mile per hour winds with gusts up to 173 miles per hour from that typhoon. We had one of our fuel tankers blow up. I remember being without fuel for a while, having miles long to wait for fuel at different gas stations. So just to show the devastating impacts that happen, but also show how far we are from different resources, which is why it's so important for us to maintain individual preparedness within our communities. I know I'm speaking with Yoni on the line, and I know that her internet might be in and out, but we're going to try to get her on board. She's going to talk to us a little bit about threats and hazards in our region and then the Emergency Operations Center. But I'm here to support if we're cutting out. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Yoni if you're able to chime in.
Hi, Jenna. Thank you so much. So I'll go ahead and discuss the threats and hazards. So again, Guam is definitely susceptible to many different threats and hazards. And these are just a couple of threats and hazards that Guam has faced. And working with our local stakeholders, we definitely try to make sure that our plans are up to date and applicable to these threats and hazards. So if I can just go through it. So again, the natural would be, of course, typhoons, earthquakes, our recent pandemic, tsunamis, floods, and then our technological would be hazardous materials release, utility disruption, and then of course the human cause, which would be the cyber attacks, explosive devices, arm assault, active shooter incidents, and nuclear attacks. I just have to applaud some of our local stakeholders because again, we have as far as the JHS OCD agency, we have a really good relationship with our local stakeholders in making sure that our plans are in sync as far as our threats and hazards. So this will definitely tie into the next slide with the Emergency Operations Center. So again, if you guys are not aware, the Emergency Operations Center is the centralized location of emergency response and recovery support during incidents. As far as the activation, the EOC can be activated by the Governor of Guam, the Guam Homeland Security Advisor, as well as the Office of Civil Defense Administrator. And if not all, majority of the activations of the EOC occur either in anticipation of an incident. So for example, let's say we have our local Liberation Day coming up. We're definitely going to prepare the EOC to be activated to support anything regarding resources, the coordination of resources that's going to be needed for our local Liberation Day parade. So in anticipation of that specific incident, the EOC will also get activated, let's say, following an incident. So let's say, for example, we had either an earthquake or tsunami that would require multiple agency coordination, the EOC would get activated. And then the EOC also gets activated for monitoring purposes during national security special events. And then also for periods of heightened terrorist or potential threats. So as mentioned before, some of the examples of the EOC getting activated would be in the event of a typhoon, in the event of the other natural disasters, but also other events that again would require multiple agency coordination. So like let's say a big, how do I say this? An event on the island. It can be something as like a concert or a festival that is going to involve a lot of people and would require multiple agency coordination, such as the Guam Police Department and the Mayor's Council of Guam. So again, it's I would say the key for the EOC to be activated is the requirement of multi-agency coordination. And then lastly, the level of activation is based upon known or anticipated operation requirements. So with the EOC, there are 4 levels of activation. We have a level 4, which is normal operations, and that's usually the steady state. And then next would be a level 3, partial activation. And here would be GHS, OCD, EOC manager, as well as the command staff to what do you call this? Be a part of the partial activation. A level 2, which is also a partial activation, would require the GHS OCD staff and then select agency representatives. So here, just to give an example, an idea as to like what would warrant a level 2 activation. Let's say we had resources resources located at one of our bases. A lot of the times we would do an escort where resources at one base would need escort to another base on the island. So here in this level 2 activation, we would only tap on select agency representatives, such as the Guam Police Department, our Mayor's Council of Guam representative, our fire department representative. So again, it's only select agency representatives. And then lastly, we have our level 1, which is our full activation, and that would be the entire GHS OCD team members, as well as all agency representatives. And then if you can go to the next slide, Jenna. So here are just a couple of pictures that we took during our COVID-19 response. So if you can see in the picture to the left, picture to the right. We'll start with picture to the right. So that would be a level 1 full activation. So here we have multiple agency representatives in our EOC working during the response. And during the response, one of the mitigation efforts that we had done to the EOC was putting up these glass dividers or plastic dividers, so that we would and then also what we did was we had to also keep the 6 feet distancing between each individual. So we kind of provided space between each individual, and then again the dividers definitely played a role for mitigation efforts for the COVID-19 response. And then if you can go to the next slide, Jenna. So capabilities of our EOC. So our core capabilities for the EOC would be maintaining situational status and analyzing information. And here, again, our capabilities of the EOC would include coordinating and sharing information with our federal partners, such as our Region 9 Watch, Regional Response Coordination Center, Department of Defense, Joint Region Marianas, and then finally our local stakeholders and partners. So again, coordination and sharing information with local and federal partners is definitely a key capability of the EOC. And then also in the EOC, we also maintain situational awareness of incidents or potential incidents that would require Guam response and recovery efforts. And then we also review warning and information for potential impact. And then lastly, and I know I've said this before, but it serves as a central coordination location during incident response, and also supporting field operations by activating deploying teams, and then also directing resources wherever it is needed. Next slide, please. And then staffing. So with the staffing, as Jenna mentioned before, every incident is going to be different. So likewise with the EOC, it's whether the incident is going to be on a bigger scale, then we're going to go ahead and adjust the EOC to match the incident, match the response. If the incident is going to be on a smaller level or smaller scale, then we will go ahead and adjust the EOC to match that. So again, the EOC is going to be staffed to meet anticipated operational requirements. And then also they're going to be staffed by personnel from each agency or department. And this is not just a government field agency. This is the government and non-government entities, partners and stakeholders that we're working alongside. So I know having these presentations, a lot of people think that, okay, it's just government. No, we actually have a great relationship with our private nonprofit and other non-governmental entities. We have a really good relationship, and I feel like we do our best to include them and make sure that they're a part of the incident response. Because again, everyone has a role. It's not just going to be on the government's shoulders or the responsibility of the government. We all do well working together to make sure everyone does their part during the response. And going on to the next bullet, says agencies, entities are grouped within 15 emergency support functions. So with that one, I put agencies and entities because again, on the next slide, I'm going to go ahead and go over the 15 emergency support functions, and that is inclusive of, again, non-governmental entities. So if you're not familiar with the different emergency support functions, here you go. So we have ESF. ESF is pretty much the acronym for emergency support function. So we have ESF1, and that's your transportation. So agencies such as the airport, as well as the Guam airport, as well as Guam Port Authority, they would support ESF1. With ESF2, that'd be your communications. So that's our telecommunications networks, such as GTA, such as our Office of Technology. So they would be in they would support our ESF2. And then ESF3, Public Works and Engineering, and so forth, all the way to ESF15. And again, all these different emergency support functions are represented in our EOC. So everyone is pretty much wearing their different ESF hat and coordinating amongst each other to, again, share information, analyze information, and coordinate resources as needed. And then, sorry, Jenna, can you go back to the previous slide? I just wanted to, and then I just want to note that each ESF is comprised of one or more response activity coordinators. So as I was mentioning before, I kept saying representative. So those agency representatives, or that person that would represent that agency or government agency or non-government entity, they're what we would call a response activity coordinator. And each ESF has one or more to represent their respective agencies or entities. Okay, you can go next slide. And then you can go to the next one. Okay, so here's another couple of images. So this is pre-COVID. This is pre-COVID. So the left side again, that's during a heavy weather brief, and most likely that is a full activation. So that'd be a level 1 full activation of our EOC. Each row you see in the EOC are comprised of different ESFs and their response activity coordinator, also known as RAC. And then on the lower picture, that is our policy room. And there we have different senior level individuals pretty much having their own heavy weather brief and going over what the next step or what is going to happen in the next couple of hours. You can go to the next slide. So roles and responsibilities. So I'm just going to go through this briefly, but again, the roles and responsibilities of a response activity coordinator are put out there only because of the role, again, the role that they play in our EOC. So we ask that each response activity coordinator who is stationed in the EOC have the authority, experience, and knowledge to serve as a coordinator and as a decision maker for their department, agency, or entity. And this right here is I would say from experience is really important because again, in the EOC, there's a lot of coordination happening. So it's important that the person in that seat for that emergency support function is able to make decisions, because in the event that coordination is needed, time is also of the essence. So, being able to make that decision right then and there. The next one must be knowledgeable of the Guam Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, the NRF, which is the National Response Framework, and NIMS, the National Incident Management Processes, Procedures, and Principles. So here it's pretty much our knowledgeable of our territory plans, and then also the NIMS process, procedures, principles. That's your, how do we say this? Being familiar with the ICS structure, as well as the common language that we're all, speaking during the incident. And then the next one would be must have broad understanding of their agency or department's capabilities, limitations, or authority. Here is definitely another important one because, again, during the response, during the incident, as we are coordinating, whether it be resources, whether it be different other assets, or even information, the person sitting there, the response activity coordinator, they must be knowledgeable of what their agency's capabilities are and what their limitations are, because that definitely goes hand in hand with their decision making that might take place. And then also, I'm just going to jump to the last one where it says should require more than a single representative to adequately provide decision making, operational planning, and information and reporting activities. So this is definitely important because we have different responses or incidences that we can be in there more than your 24 hours. So being able to have more than one representative is definitely important to provide the what do you call this, the decision making during the coordination. You can go on to the next slide. And so here we have multi-agency coordination. So just a couple of pictures of us during a response or during an outreach where we work with our different federal partners as well as our local partners, our stakeholders. Okay, next slide. Okay, and this slide would be it's pretty much the process of how our resources, how the process for the resources happens in the EOC. So starting with the far left side where it says Guam EOC request. So during a response or an incident, let's say during a typhoon, right? We're in the middle of a typhoon and a resource is being requested. The request is going to either come from people boots on the ground into the EOC, and this is the process in the EOC. So the request comes from the agency and it goes to our planning and or operations side where they make sure the request is complete, and then they also monitor the request. So they push the request over to either source within our EOC. Let's say a vehicle is needed, right, to move debris in one area of the island. So if an agency puts that request in, members of the planning and operations team will go ahead and look over the request, and they're going to go ahead and pass it over to another agency within our EOC to see if we can source that resource in-house. So meaning, would there be another agency that could fulfill this request? Would we be able to tap on to another agency that can provide a vehicle for this specific request? So if we were to do that and the agency is able to fulfill the request, then that request is going to be, again, fulfilled, and the item requested, which would be a vehicle, would go over to the initial agency that requested it. In the event that that resource is not able to be fulfilled within our EOC, then we would direct the request either to our admin side to see is there funding that we would be able to use to get this request. So in the event that we're not able to source in-house and we're not able to find any funding to fulfill the request, then we would elevate that with our federal partners. So again, which would be working with FEMA on request for federal direct assistance. And then again, it's a whole nother, that itself is a whole nother document. So you can go to the next slide, Jenna. So here is our disaster land. So our disaster land is pretty much our platform, the platform that we use to communicate with our local stakeholders as well as our partners in the response. So sorry, Jenna, are we able to zoom in? No.
I can't.
Okay, no worries. So within our disaster, so what we call it DLAN, disaster land, a lot of our requests for resources get put into DLAN. We also get tickets for information such as information for situational awareness. A lot of our communication within the EOC is through disaster land. Another platform that we use with our response activity coordinators, it's definitely with the moving with the times. We do have email, we do have phone numbers, but one thing that we also added was we have like a WhatsApp chat with all our response activity coordinators, which we saw that it was a faster way to communicate with our response activity coordinators. So in the event we have a disaster, or in the event we need to activate the EOC, our first form of communication to notify everyone that, hey, the EOC is going to be activated would be a phone call and an email. And then, moving with the times, we also included WhatsApp, this WhatsApp chat, which we would notify everyone on the chat that, hey everyone, the EOC will be activated for X amount of time. Please report at this time. So we found that to be definitely a great way to communicate with the response activity coordinators for a faster, again, faster ways of communication. And then if you go to the next slide. Okay. And then that definitely concludes the EOC portion.
Okay, thank you so much, Yoni. We'll go ahead and power through. So I want to talk a little bit about our Joint Information Center, and this is our Government of Guam, military, federal government's clearinghouse for information sharing about emergencies. That way, instead of the public getting information from multiple sources, they receive them from one source, the Joint Information Center. Just like the EOC, we're activated as needed. Different scenarios require different levels of activation. For instance, with COVID-19, we're still virtually activated. We're still issuing weekly JIC releases for updates on COVID-19. This would be completely different for a typhoon, where we'd have JIC personnel actually staged at Guam Homeland Security working with us inside our building. Sometimes even the media will bunker down with us with the JIC. They'll stay for the duration of a storm. And for those, we work very closely with our partners from National Weather Service. We'll actually get their input on some of the verbiage for our Joint Information Center releases. We are co-located with the Emergency Operations Center. So Yoni talked about the EOC, the JIC, and the EOC work hand in hand. Here in our office at Guam Homeland Security, the JIC is literally right across the hallway from the EOC. So the JIC, just like the EOC, is staffed by representatives from different agencies. The Joint Information Center is also staffed by representatives from those agencies. Typically, it's their public information officer, but it doesn't have to be. And we act as support for the on-scene incident commander, but we also receive guidance from, and we receive information directly from the Emergency Operations Center in order to disseminate whatever that mission is for that response. We're also responsible for coordinating the use of our emergency notification system, and we work closely with the state warning point in order to do so. And our purpose, we're meant to keep the general public informed. Part of our JIC SOPs, our standard operating procedures, is to include a time frame for issuing information based on the incident. So we have different thresholds or different points that we like to meet. For instance, issuing a message of an oil spill within 15-30 minutes of the incident. All of that is included as part of our SOPs, and we operate under one voice, one message. Through the JIC, we communicate what the government of Guam and its partners are doing to reduce any threats to the general public, and we work very hard to instill confidence in that, in those response and recovery efforts, which is very important when we're asking the community to take certain action items. We're asking them to take action on their end, so we want them to place trust and know that the information that we're issuing is reputable, that it's true, it's factual. And in order to do this, we conduct a lot of community outreach if we have to. We also analyze public perception. So we gauge a lot of community input from our social media, from our responses back. And we gauge a lot of that to see if people are actually taking the precautionary action measures that we're asking them to. We work very hard to squash any rumors. We've become pretty creative in doing that. We have a lot of efforts in place to try and stop any recreation of our releases. We place, important logos at the very top. We identify releases with specific numbers. We PDF our documents. We've had, a lot of times people in the past have doctored some of our information, where they'll send out a release that says it's from the Joint Information Center and it says that schools are closed. So we work very hard to squash any of those rumors. We have an amazing graphics team. It's essentially really just one person. His name's Nick Lee. He works with the Environmental Protection Agency, but he's a member of the JIC, and he's a great graphic artist. He's able to squash rumors. If there are messages that are circulating on WhatsApp or on people's phones, he's immediately able to take that image, slap a fake or unverified banner over it, and we send that out as much as we can on social media, which really helps. So we work very hard to squash any rumors that go around during an emergency. And then we just wanted to highlight that we take an all hazards and all threats approach to emergencies, and it's guided by our current plans in place. Yoni talked about our Guam Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. So the emergency notifications, it's also part of that. Our office, we recognize that we need to use all of these means of communication for mass notices, and we work to activate all of them at the same time in the event of a real emergency. So just to go through them, we have very close partnerships with our local media, our radio stations and television stations. We don't have SMS emergency notification alert set up here on Guam. We do rely heavily on our local media. So we encourage residents to sign up for breaking news text alerts so that way they can receive those notices whenever we push out a press release. Our GHS OCD website, David talked a little bit about it, but during an emergency that's updated real time 24/7. You can find information on there. Our social media, we have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We encourage the community to follow us through there, and we encourage you to follow us as well. The contact number that's listed there, that's manned by our state warning point, which is 24/7. You can contact us anytime through that. We also have what's called alert beacons. We have 50 of them that are installed around the island. This is an in-building emergency notification system. There's a little, you'll see the photo there. It looks like a little pager that says alert. That's what it looks like. The 50 beacons were procured in an effort to expand our alert and warning capability and improve our delivery of actionable items. So we can actually put in a message, a text bulletin there that lets people know exactly what they should do in the event of an emergency. We have them placed at all of the Guam Department of Education schools, the University of Guam, the different mayor's offices here on Guam, our office, and the governor's office as well. And then we also have what's called the emergency alert system, our sirens there at the bottom right-hand side. That's the one that's located at Guam Homeland Security. And this is our notification siren system. We test these sirens. We have 21 sirens now. There are 15 that are stationary and 6 that are trailer mounted. So we're able to move them around. If one stationary one goes down, we can move our trailer mounted in that area. We test them every first Tuesday of the month. So the community is pretty aware of when we test them. Same time, first Tuesday of the month. And we test these in partnership with our military partners who also have siren systems on their properties. And just in the interest of time, I know I'm kind of breezing through this, but we did want to highlight our community outreach efforts. We do take a whole community disaster preparedness approach. Our disaster preparedness presentations include all hazards and all threats, natural, man-made, and technological. So even if we're talking to students, elementary students, we try to incorporate all those different types of hazards. And of course, we partner, our whole agency is about partnerships with our different stakeholders, but yeah, here you can see we partner, for instance, with the Guam Fire Department for National Preparedness Month, with the Mariana Regional Fusion Center, and our partners with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for See Something, Say Something campaigns. So we just wanted to highlight that not only in emergencies are we responding with our different stakeholders, but even in our community outreach efforts, we work together and leverage some of their resources. They leverage some of ours in order to get our disaster preparedness information out to the community. Again, we have a very robust earthquake and tsunami preparedness campaign. If you come to Guam, you'll see a lot of our different tsunami evacuation route signs leading to a safe assembly area. We have a Tsunami McKenna, a character that's specific for tsunami preparedness with commercials, outreach material. We had a puppet show where we would go out to the different elementary schools and teach them about tsunami preparedness. We're really trying to bolster our tsunami preparedness before one happens. We know that it's possible, although it's very rare to get a destructive tsunami. We know that it's possible, and we're just trying to let the community know that it very much is. We still have members of the community that are saying, you know, that would never happen here. We have the Marianas Trench. We are surrounded by reef. So there's a lot of misconception that we try to break through and help get that information out, that it's still very much possible here on Guam. And then just to further highlight, we participate in the Great Guam Shakeout. the Great Shakeout, the worldwide earthquake drill every October. And we also participate in so many different events throughout the year. Just to throw a few, we have, Tsunami Preparedness Week in August, Earthquake Preparedness Week. We celebrate Typhoon Preparedness Month all month long in June. We celebrate National Preparedness Month in September, participate in the Great Shakeout in October. We also participate in the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month in October. So there are so many different initiatives that we're following throughout the year, that we're trying to get information out about throughout the year. So community outreach is a continual event. We have one coming up just this week where we'll be doing a career day presentation for an elementary school here. Part of that is to also share disaster preparedness information while we're there. And then just to highlight some of our whole community preparedness programs, we have an active community emergency response team volunteer training program where we train members of the community and educate volunteers about disaster preparedness for hazards in their area. Most recently, we just completed this with Guam High School students this past weekend. We do have a focus here on, doing this for schools, businesses, neighborhood programs, really any community that's out there that can work together in the event of an emergency to help their community before emergency responders arrive. We also have an active neighborhood watch program, which is the local crime prevention program that enlists active participation from residents to cooperate with the Guam Police Department. The village mayor's offices, along with the Guam Police Department, play a huge part in this active collaboration. We're also working on reactivation of our medical reserve corps, our fire corps, and our volunteers and police service. We have an active voluntary organizations, active in disaster or VOAD group. And these are voluntary organizations that assist members in our community whenever there's a large disaster. So I just quickly ran through those. Those are just some of the initiatives that we have. And again, this was just a brief overview. I know we're a little bit over time, David, but there's so much more information that we could highlight about our organization and even the different divisions. We have some members from our agency that are on the call today, but we're just appreciative of the time that you gave us today to talk about, highlight our partnerships and highlight our role in emergency management here on Guam. Here we have a photo of Tumon Bay. This is EPAL Beach, and we have our contact number there. You can reach out to us. Our website that's listed there, you can go on there and you'll actually have an opportunity to visit. To click on a link where you can see specific divisions. So if you want to reach out to any of the divisions that I mentioned earlier, their contact information is on there on our website. And this concludes our presentation. Again, just lastly, David, thank you so much. And the PITD team, we're appreciative of the time and everyone that joined us on the call today to give us an opportunity to highlight our role here in the Pacific. So thank you so much.
Sure, of course. Thank you, Jenna. Yeah, don't apologize for going over time. But I did want to make sure we could answer some questions if people have questions. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I wanted to bring up one thing that I thought about, and I don't have the answer to this. And that is, it's been 20 years now since there's been a severe typhoon that hit Guam, right? So there's now a whole generation that has no perception of what that's like or what to do in that situation. And I guess my question is, how do you appeal to that group of people? I mean, literally, they're adults, they're young adults, and they, I mean, having lived in Guam part of the time since 2015, and having been adopted by a family, I just know I'm going to follow whatever they tell me to do in that situation. But yeah, there are people, I'm sure that lots of people have moved to Guam in the last 20 years, and they just have no perception of what it's like and what the aftermath is like, and how do you impress upon those people the gravity and things that need to be done.
I appreciate you bringing that up. Part of our outreach initiative from Guam Homeland Security is when we do go out to visit the younger generations, of course, we talk about the different threats and hazards out there, including typhoons and the real world scenarios that actually happen here on Guam. But we also try to reach out to, whenever we do these large initiatives, we ask the question for the adults in our community. Can you please take some time today throughout National Preparedness Month, for instance, or Typhoon Preparedness Month? Use this month to talk to your children, talk to your family members about some of the experiences that you've had during the last major typhoon or typhoons from the past. In most recent years, we know that our brothers and sisters with CNMI have been impacted by typhoons such as U2, Sotolor, and that happened in a time when the younger generations are now able to see some of those videos that were shared across our island. We received a lot of videos from our brothers and sisters in CNMI, so we're able to share those as well, because those just happened they're a few miles away from us. We weren't as impacted by those storms. They had direct hits where we didn't, but we just highlight and keep impressing the fact that, you know, this can happen in our region. It happened to Saipan and our different partners in the Mariana Islands. It can very much happen here on Guam. So we just continue that messaging. We try to get the adults in our community to take the time when you're sitting around the dinner table to talk about their experiences. So it's really more about passing on the message of what you went through. And then of course we do our typhoon preparedness. It's hard to let the children know exactly what it's like without showing videos, and just, it's really just about sharing the experiences that we had.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so please check out their website sometime, especially if you move to Guam, because there's a lot of suggestions on there for things to do to prepare in event of a major typhoon or major earthquake, things that I've not even thought of. And you want to be prepared. I mean, that's the issue that I've learned from my adopted family is you don't start in the last 24 hours to prepare for the typhoon coming. You prepare for it days in advance, whether or not it's going to come, because if you wait to the last 12 hours, it's too late. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna close out the meeting, and thank you, Jenna. And thank you, Yoni. Good to meet you. And we'll see you in December. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.